Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crime Dawg Podcast with your host and content creator, Johnny FIORICA, who thinks playing 2 games of bocce after a cookout is a form of exercise. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Folks, welcome to the Crime Dawg Podcast. Your host, content creator, Johnny FIORICA. I'm a 30-year retired detective with the Rochester Police Department. Sitting alongside me tonight is my trusted co-host, David SIMPSON. He was a legendary street cop, undercover cop, SWAT team member, homicide detective, 20-plus years, retired also from the Rochester Police Department in New York State. David, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Happy to be here as always, Johnny.
So we talked about when we created this podcast that, we wanted to stick up for our brothers and sisters who pretty much don't have a voice, whether it's locally, whether it's statewide, or whether it's nationally. We've done a couple podcasts where, unfortunately, we did not take the side of law enforcement, and people, if you look back in our repertoire of episodes, can find out which episodes are those. One of them being the PGA with Scotty Scheffler in Louisville, Kentucky. The other one with our district attorney, Sandra Dorley. So at the end of the day, we talk about issues that affect law enforcement, either directly or indirectly. We've been watching the news cycle in Rochester, New York, the last couple of days, and we felt we'd be remiss if we did not address the traffic stop that's been all over the news media regarding the Rochester Police Department, specifically a couple officers that work on the east side of the city. Basically, around 2 p.m. on May 7th, 2024. So this was a little over a month ago, David. Officers observed the vehicle. The vehicle had tint. That tinted window also was being driven by an occupant. They couldn't see inside and made a turn, did not signal. They go to pull the vehicle over. The vehicle refuses to comply, does not pull over. And then what ends up happening is they guesstimate about a football field and a quarter, about 125 yards, a full city block. Eventually the driver complies, pull over, does not adhere to any of the verbal commands that either the contact or the cover officers are giving him. And they subsequently, after several attempts not to break out the window, advise the occupant of the vehicle, the driver, that they're going to break out the window, and they eventually break out the window. So they break out the window, and we have said this in the past. I'm going to start out with this. We try to explain to our viewers, our subscribers, and people that listen to us that we try to shoot it down the middle. We try to say, because our tagline is common sense has arrived. But at the very least, I want to just tell you that at times police work, and David and I have said this on numerous occasions, to those that observe it, sometimes it does look ugly, even when the officers are doing the right thing. Just because this video specifically makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean that the cops were wrong. Officers did everything by the book. We're going to insert the video right here to give you an idea. It's body-worn footage from the Rochester Police Department, and Danny, our producer, is going to drop it for us right here.
Roll down your back window.
Why you got a gun out?
Roll down your back window.
Why is the gun out?
Because you weren't pulling over. Roll down your back window now.
I didn't see you.
Roll down your back window. Roll down your back window.
You can't see the car. Your tint is way too dark. Just roll the back windows down. Just roll the back windows down for us. Can't see anything in the back of the car. Is there anybody back there? Okay, just roll the windows down before we break them. How does that sound then? Because I can't see in the car.
If you don't roll your back window down. What are you doing?
You're doing too much.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Sir, get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Sorry, don't you? You can take in the car, please.
Get out of the car. You got a window puncher now. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. I'm telling you, get out of the car.
What?
Because I said so. Get out of the car.
Why you want?
Because you're not complying with me. Get out of the car right now. Get out.
What's the reason why?
Because I'm conducting. Get out of the car. I'm not explaining anything else. Get out of the car. Bro, I'm just gonna break the window. All right, I'm breaking your window. No, I'm not. I'm breaking your window.
Yes, you is.
How much you want to bet? I'm gonna break your window, sir.
Yeah, you gonna pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Last chance to give him.
What's that?
Give him another chance.
Sir, you need to get out of the car. I'm gonna break your window.
What is the problem?
I'm gonna break your window. Get out of the car. I'm gonna break your window.
What did I do?
I'm gonna break your window. Get out of the car.
Why you breaking my? Why you gonna break my?
Get out of the car. I'm not playing around. Get out of the car.
What is your? Oh, chill out, bro. Chill out. Why you doing it?
Get out. Now.
Chill.
Get out of the car.
Yo, chill out, bro. Chill. Yo, for what? What did I do? Oh,
Stop.
what the? Yo, what the? Yo, nah, bro, nah.
Get on the ground.
Yo, what the? Did I? Yo, help me. Help me.
Stop grabbing my hand. Stop grabbing my hand. You
Help
understand?
me. Help me. Help me. I didn't do I didn't. Yo, help me.
Bro, you got drugs on you. Stop
No,
moving.
I don't.
Yes, you do.
I promise I don't.
He's gone.
Bro, for that.
Come on, bro.
You're an idiot, bro.
Come out. Not for it.
Stand up.
Yeah, record the whole.
Stop.
Bro, I can't get my crock, bro.
You're not gonna leave. We're gonna need that for evidence.
Get in the car.
I'm just gonna search the car because he wanted to not get out of the car.
Yeah, we.
We're on scene for that club in Westcott NBA.
Yeah, weed, scales.
Hi, Mr. Taylor.
What happened, man?
Well, your car's getting towed because it's uninspected. So we have to tow it because of that. It's not roadworthy, per the state of New York. Why'd you put your window up? Why didn't you talk to him?
No, I was, but he never told me. I asked him. He told me to get out the car. I said, for what? He said, just get out. Like, he wasn't trying to give me no reason. Like, why would I just get out? I been before you. I got pulled over 10 times. They asked me for my license. He never asked me for my license. So
But you had your window up?
yeah, and my sunroof was up. Like, when
Why'd you? I'm just asking, why wouldn't you? Because you've been
because
told.
he had a gun. That's the reason why. Why would I run up my window if he got a gun out?
You good though? You're straight? All right. I hope your day gets better from here. I hope this is the worst part of your week, sir. Take care. God bless you.
All right, so this is just here's your traffic tickets. This is just an appearance ticket. It's not admitting guilt or anything like that. Just saying that you're going to show up to court on May 21st. So just need a signature, your date of birth, and your sex.
Phone. Listen, that never has to get to that point, right? I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse here, but you you have to comply with our orders when in that situation. Okay. So basically, David, you see the video. Obviously, we know we've been in that situation numerous times, pulling over a vehicle, and we know exactly what the officers, I know what I would be thinking. I don't know what they were thinking, but I know based on their actions, what I would be thinking, especially the contact officer. That first officer goes to the driver's side of the vehicle, right?
Yep.
He doesn't even want to break the threshold of the rear passenger door, which was his bone of contention with the driver from the beginning, right? That's number one. because he can't see inside the car. His bone of contention was he can't see inside the car. There was too much tint.
Correct.
And he was given verbal commands for the driver to roll down his windows so he could see inside the car. The driver refuses. Eventually, he has to bypass officer safety, which we never like to do, to approach the driver to try to convince him to roll down his windows. He rolls it down a crack, but not enough for them to see in the vehicle. It's a very dangerous situation. And what is your thought on the initial video when you saw the video?
The first thing I thought when I saw it was these guys showed so much restraint that I feared that in the future something bad could happen, because they warned him and went verbal so long that the potential for something bad happening grew with each second that passed. I think the time these guys are policing in has never been more difficult. I think the rhetoric that they have to work under makes them go so much longer than is even needed to preserve their, jobs and preserve not getting, quote, in trouble.
Yeah.
But they went way above and beyond showing restraint. And you even hear the contact or the cover officer saying, give him one more chance.
Right, before he broke the window.
Right. And, in 2015, ask, tell, make. It's gone. Like, it's that quick. There's no, you lock the car, you're sitting in there. Like, those guys showed tremendous restraint, and they did everything by the book. And like you said, it's a dangerous game. This is a dangerous business, and violence doesn't always look pretty. And a window got broken. To me, big deal. That guy was safe. The cops were safe. It's a win for everybody.
So let us explain something for things that, in case people don't know, we promise we're not talking down to you. We just want to explain it from a law enforcement, from a cop's perspective. So yes, it's a traffic stop. 100% it's a traffic stop. But the immediate concern for the officers that were there is they can't see inside the car. That's what we call officer safety. So therefore, the traffic stop at that point becomes secondary. The primary issue or the priority is now the safety. So what they stopped him for, forget about that. Now they have to they know that they have to take it, because they're at this point, they don't feel like they're in control of the situation because they can't see inside the car. It's a danger area. So the officer's safety and the risk at that point takes priority over the traffic stop. Okay. Now, why is that? What people need to know is if there's anyone else in that car, the cops want to know how many, where they're seated, and if any of those people have any weapons. And a weapon could be anything.
And where their hands are.
Correct. Right. Where the immediate grabbable area. Or do they have access to anything in the car? So the traffic stop then at this point becomes secondary. The primary thing that they were trying to take control of was their officer's safety. Okay. So the driver refuses to comply. And it seems like he wanted to get into a debate. I haven't been arrested before. That's not the time at that point. The point is to address the commands that the officers are giving you. Roll down your windows, sir. Please roll down your windows. Please roll down your windows. He's refusing to comply to those verbal commands. So when he wants to discuss, when he cracks his window open a hair, anything he's saying is what we would call a non-starter. It's non-negotiable at that point, because still officer safety is these officers' top priority at this point. So if you hear me and David say contact officer, cover officer, so usually that's just police lingo for whoever is dealing or is the primary officer giving the main directions, right? The person on the driver's side of the vehicle, we call that person, that officer, the contact officer. The officer on the other side of the vehicle is the cover officer, okay? So the primary officer was giving clear verbal commands to the driver on what he wanted and needed them to do, and he clearly wasn't complying. And like you said, David, the officer, the cover officer, literally yells over and says, hey, before you break the window, give him one more chance. And he did. And he refused to comply.
And he told him what was going to happen. He literally said, he asked him, and then he told him what he was going to have to do. And then he came back and said, I'm going to break your window if you don't roll down the window. And I think I still didn't roll down the window.
Right. You know, at the end of the day, and let's address the elephant in the room, right? Because we're not afraid to discuss anything on this podcast, okay? We're not afraid of any type of people with opposing views or things that have opinions that don't agree with ours. So let's address the elephant in the room, because this is what some of the news channels are saying. I'm not going to call them out, and this is what the gentleman is saying in his second press conference that I think he had today, which, by the way, Corporation Counsel's got to be loving that, because every time that gentleman speaks, I feel that he is definitely incriminating himself. But hey, I'm retired. It's not for me to say. But anyways, let's address the elephant in the room. And he mentioned this at one of his press conferences. He talks about how, I was treated extremely different than District Attorney Sandra Dorley, right? I know what some of the news outlets are trying to do, and I know what some of those keyboard warriors are trying to do. I had the ability to do an interview yesterday with Channel 10. They called me, and Haley Higgins and I spoke, and I think she did a good job covering it, a great job covering it, I should say. And she interviewed me, and we talked for about a half hour, and they take bits and pieces of what you say, and they write a story about it. But there's some race baiters, and that was some of the stuff that didn't make the camera, which I know it didn't fit into the story, but at the same time, but I call them race baiters because that's exactly what they are. They're out there trying to race bait specifically, and I will name them. This one is the Democrat and Chronicle. They posted some BS on Twitter, right? And their exact quote, the Democrat and Chronicle on Twitter, was Sandra Dorley and Marvin Taylor both faced minor traffic infractions. The police response was markedly different. So here's what I'm going to say before I get to my co-host, David Simpson. For the race baiters out there, the Democrat Chronicle might have said they were markedly different. You had a male black, tinted windows in a vehicle in what we call an urban, depressed, quote unquote, ghetto area, okay? And then you had Sandra Dorley, who is what they're going to try to say, she's a female right, she's privileged, she's an elected official, and she lives in the suburbs. So when I say they're race baiting you, here's what our stance is. From a cop's perspective, they're both wrong. We've said it. Sandra was wrong, and Marvin was wrong. Okay?
100%.
And that's what people need to understand. Anybody that is trying to race bait or start to play, they did this for Sandra, they didn't do this for him, they did this. David, it's exactly people trying to get people sucked in to that racial argument. The bottom line is you had two different agencies of officers, but at the same time, what we have here is you have a traffic stop, and neither the drivers wanted to comply with lawful commands from the officers that were dealing with them. Let me just mention something, okay, that seems to also be nobody wants to address. And I talked a little bit about this with Haley when she and I talked. I said, if people would only comply, because she asked me, what would you say to people that are, and I said the same thing, consistent, right? I said, comply. That's it. One word, comply. And
Easy.
you said on a podcast, David, you said, you know what? There's times after the traffic stop for you to have your time in court or have your time wherever, blah, blah, blah. And people have to understand the one word is comply. That's all you need to know. What's amazing about this, and I told Haley this yesterday, I said, his resistance and his nervousness was the weed that was in the car. The weed that was in the car, David, you and I were in the drug game for a very long time. We went after people that actually were supplying drugs to this area. We went after gun traffickers that were supplying weapons. So we know the game of drugs and guns, right? We just weren't You know, we did it when we were younger kids on the job going after the dime bag guys, but we kind of graduated and moved up. That being said, we know the dope game. So when I see on the body worn a scale in the car, when I see new and unused baggies in the car, when I see loose marijuana in the car, not strewn about, but in bags that's loose, that to me is telling me somebody is bagging up for resale. Because if you are a user of weed, and we know a lot of people that are, you're not going to, in most instances, weigh it up before you roll it into a joint or put it into a bong or decide however which way you're going to digest it, correct?
Correct. And the other point I'll make on to piggyback that is because people are going to watch this and be like, weed's practically legal in New York and all this stuff.
Right.
We're not talking about how big of a deal it is that he had the weed. What we're talking about is why he wouldn't get out of the car, why he wouldn't comply, why he wouldn't roll down the window. And I can't speak for what was going on in his head, but based on my training experience and being in that situation and being in the dope game, he didn't want to roll down the window because he was worried about the weed in the car and the bag in the back seat with the head, the scale, and the baggies.
So it's funny because this didn't make, and I say this not that Haley was keeping stuff out, but one of the things that Haley and I discussed, and it was a great conversation, and I can't say enough about her. But the one thing I said was, usually people are paranoid or nervous about something, which is why they refuse to pull over, refuse to get out of the car, and usually almost 9 times or 10 times out of 10, if you just comply, the officers are really laid back in most cities and states. What you're nervous about probably isn't even going to be an issue. And guess what? These officers that dealt with Marvin, with this gentleman, they didn't even charge him with the weed. They didn't even charge him with the weed.
They were gentlemen through and through. You can't be more proud of the job they did because they showed restraint in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to resort to violence against the window. They have to extract him from the car because he's not complying. They have no choice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They take him into custody. He's still not complying. Is he fighting? No, but he's not putting his hands behind his back immediately. He's still questioning and he's still a no to a maybe person. Then they get him in custody. Their whole heightened level comes down. They treat him with respect. They're cordial, right? They didn't treat him badly at all. He was treated very professionally.
Yeah, and I can't really tell. I can't say with 100% certainty what his level of resistance was based on the body worn. I saw when it panned a little bit when he was up against, when his belly went up against the car when they first got him out, but I can't tell. But there must have been some level of resistance for them to then decide to then ground stabilize him and handcuff him at that position. There must have been some other mitigating factors that either I didn't pick up on the body cam or the body cam didn't show. But I will say that they eventually put him on the ground, handcuffed him, subsequently subdued him. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we've been in situations, even before weed has been so normalized as it has been in the last couple of years. I don't even know what the officers would have done with the weed because there's new cannabis laws that I gotta be honest with you. I don't even remember them because I've been retired for coming up close to a year now. 9 months ago, I don't even know what the cannabis laws are because that's what they call them now. So I don't even know what the level of, it looked like there was a 1/4 pound to a 1/2 pound to 3/4. Based on the baggies, it looked like about that much, I'm guessing. But anyways, I mean, I don't even know what the laws are, to be honest with you. So they may not have even taken his weed from him because New York state law says you're able to possess up to a certain amount of ounces, But like I said, I mean, people get
He was certainly worried about it.
100% he was worried about it. 100%. Here's another thing. And I'm not being catty, but let me just say this, because this actually has come from past podcasts and past media that we've done. When they say, well, these guys, they're hardly experts, because sometimes there might be an old time retired cop saying that, or there might be somebody that wasn't a cop. They're like, well, they kind of know our history and they know the type of work that we did, but they say these guys aren't experts in traffic stop. Yeah, we are. Now, I wasn't Aldo Di Biccelli. I wasn't Jeremy Millspaw. I wasn't Danny Cleary. I wasn't these guys that are professional traffic stop dudes. Okay. They are traffic. And I think our RPD traffic unit is one of the best there ever is. Okay. Historically, over my years, they've always been great guys. And when I retired, those are the main guys that I retired with. However, that being said, no, I wasn't those guys doing a traffic stop. However, David, let me just say this. Guys like me and you, when we were targeting big time dope dealers or big time drug runners, okay? And part of the takedown that we had, we would be in these big briefings, right? And during that big briefing, the uniform support was there. We're like, okay, one of the targets is going to be driving whatever, ABC 123 license plate on a Toyota Tercel, whatever the car is. We directed them on how we wanted that car pulled over, where we wanted the car pulled over. We were hyper vigilant to know through surveillance that, okay, this guy's going to be driving this car. There should be one occupant. That occupant is his cousin, Jim, James, whatever. Okay, here's where they're going. Here's what our intel tells us. And we directed the officers on how we wanted the takedown to go. Now, those situations, even though we were going after higher end criminals, okay, because I'm certainly not saying that Marvin is at the level of the guys that we targeted with what I saw in the car. I'm not saying that. I'm not accusing him of being one of those guys at all. But what I'm trying to say is Marvin's is more dangerous, right, David? Because we knew who we were targeting. We did these investigations for months and months and months and months, sometimes over a year. So we knew our targets. We knew who we were targeting. Correct. So we knew their motions, their movement, who they were with, where they were going to be, if they had a gun, if they didn't have a gun.
They were violent.
If they were violent. But this situation, and this is what people need to understand, is more dangerous than us taking down a gun runner only because of the unknown. The guys that we targeted, we knew so much about them. We knew their pattern of life. We followed them. We watched them. We surveilled them. We had cameras. We had everything. We knew where their cell phone coordinates. We knew all that stuff about them. But this one, it was more dangerous because they couldn't see in the car. They didn't know anything about the driver. And like he said, he didn't have a record. Kudos for him. That's great. But that situation, what these guys were involved in, was way more dangerous than what we were directing our guys to be, or our guys to taking down our targets.
100%. And people need to understand, let's go over some things really quick here, that traffic stops are some of the most dangerous things a police officer does, especially on a daily basis. Okay.
Right.
Okay. If you want to be compliant, okay, and you want the best chance to not get written up for a ticket, this is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You pull over as far as you can to give him a lot of room so he's not having a car kiss his ass on the side of the road. You roll down your back windows so he can see into there and know there's not a threat and there's not anything dangerous in there. You turn on your light if it's at night so he can see into the cab, into the, the driver in the passenger seat.
Right.
You put your hands on the steering wheel and you don't move them until he asks you for a license. And the best thing to do in that situation, if you have to go digging, if it's in the glove box, if it's in the center console, you tell the officer, sir, ma'am, my license in the center console. Do you have a problem with me going in there to get it? Go ahead. That's how you do a traffic stop. That's how you comply. If you get your tickets, you take your tickets, you plead not guilty, you go talk to the judge about it. You don't do it at the side of the road. Okay, that's 101, how not to get your window broken, how not to get dragged out of a car, and how not to get 50 tickets. Follow that, you're going to be perfect. Okay?
Yeah.
The thing that every cop, Johnny, these guys, every cop is concerned with these. These are what kill you. Okay? Everybody, these hands, if I can't see them, I'm wondering what you're coming out with. My hands on my gun were at the side of the car because I can't see your hands. And I don't want you getting the drop on me. So if he had his hands where he could see him and the officer could see him, he wouldn't have been as aggressive about it. So, right. And the only difference that I will say about the Sandra Dorley thing, and again, we're going to say they were both wrong, okay? But the difference in that situation was when she's outside the car, granted, she went in to make the ham sandwich in the kitchen and she came out and she probably should have been detained. That was my take on it. You could see her hands. Okay. He wanted him to step out of the car. Why did he keep telling him to step out of the car? He wanted him to step out of the car so he could see his hands, so he could control the environment, so he could see it. He didn't want him grabbing anything in the car. Okay. So everyone has to understand that's what the concern was. These things.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the gun, and we always say action is faster than reaction, right? We've said that for years. Action. I'll say it one more time. Action is faster than reaction. So I didn't see the contact officer, the initial guy, the officer going up to the driver's side of the vehicle to address the occupant, to address Marvin. But he keeps saying on his videos, I didn't. I mean, again, maybe it was an oversight on my part, but I watched the video one time, the body worn camera, before I talked to Haley yesterday. But he's saying, his gun was out. Yeah, his gun was out. Of course, his gun was out. He had every right to pull his gun because the car was so tinted. If he did have his gun out, he was totally right in that aspect.
Who gives a shit if he has his gun out? You're allowed to, how many times a day does your gun come out?
Well, hang on. Let me just say this. So, ready, David? So, if this guy is walking up to Mrs. Johnson watering plants in her front yard at Conkey and Clifford, and he has his gun out just to ask her a question, that's a problem. Okay.
Yeah, but
when you're walking up to a car that has performed or could have had 2 traffic violations, right? The tint and the failure to signal, and the third, which was failing to comply and pull over, right? Which I'm assuming is the OGA, and his actions also were OGA, but he can't see into the car. The guys can't see the car. So if he did have his gun out, which again, I got to say, full disclosure, I don't know if he did or he didn't, but if he did, let's say he did, he's totally in the right to have his weapon out. Totally in the right. Because action is faster than reaction.
That's his call. If he feels there's a threat or if he's unsure, that's for his safety and the kind of, that's his call. He's totally right. You don't have to get permission to take your gun out.
And it goes exactly what we were saying. If Marvin's saying on his press conferences, the guy had his gun out. Well, yeah, because he couldn't see the car. So he didn't know if he was going to get shot through a window or whatever. He has to be ready. And even though it's tenths of seconds or however fractions of seconds to pull your gun out, sometimes that's the difference between life and death. Having it in your hand and ready to go, substantially different story. So if he did have it out to contact, 100% right. He was 100% right in having it out.
And people have to understand, again, we're going to go over it again, that they're working in a tough environment. That neighborhood they pulled these cars over with has numerous shootings. There's gun arrests on a daily basis there, people carrying illegal handguns. There's homicides there. I mean, we're talking an area that is a borderline war zone, if not a war zone. So just, you got to put yourself in these officers' shoes and understand that police work is a dangerous, dangerous business, okay?
Yeah.
And, it's not always going to be able to be done in a perfect utopian, we talk to them pretty, we no windows get broken, no one gets, punched or no one gets hit. Stuff happens, and that's how sometimes you have to take control of a situation. Sometimes it's by yelling and screaming. Sometimes it's by breaking a window. So you have to gain control of the situation. Okay. Marvin tried to control that situation. That's never gonna work out well. That's the bottom line. It's never going to work out well. The police have to control the traffic stop.
Yeah, and speaking, I'm not trying to rustle any feathers, but the nickname for the geographical area, which, as you know, and many officers listening to our stuff know, that was the area that I worked for almost 20 out of my 30 years on the job. That's actually nicknamed the war zone. I know the department frowns on hearing that, but that's a
true
fact.
Story.
True story. It's been like that. They called it the war zone since a couple years before I went there. And then I got on the job in 93 and it's been called that ever since. I know sorry, Chief Smith, I know you don't want to hear that, but that's exactly the truth though. But anyways, so yeah, that's called the war zone. And, for the reasons that you stated, and that's a fact. So, well, listen, folks, we appreciate you listening to this podcast. We hope you follow us on our YouTube channel called @Crime Dawg Podcast. Follow us on our website, which is thecrimedawgpodcast.com. If you have any comments leave them on either of those platforms. We hope you listen to this video as well as all our other videos. But like my brother-in-law, Frankie Grassi says, if you can't make it, who cares?